Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was directed by George Roy Hill and stars Paul Newman and Robert Redford. Welcome back to the classic movie review series I've been doing all year. Reviews of movies released before 1970 because there's not enough of that on YouTube. And today we're going to talk about one that's a bona fide classic, but it wasn't quite that way when it first came out. In fact, a lot of critics didn't really get this movie. But before I get any farther in the review, I want to say a personal thank you to the sponsor for this video, and that is Bombfell. They are a personal styling service for men dedicated to helping you find clothing that you would like to wear. And I am actually wearing a piece of clothing from them, and I also thought it was a perfect thing to wear in a review of a movie that is kind of a Western, sort of a Western, not really a Western, but it's a Western. This film had many critics upon its release. Roger Ebert didn't particularly like it very much. He gave it 2.5 out of 4 stars, and I read his review, and I can kind of understand where he was coming from, but I like this film quite a bit, and I always have, and a lot of it really is due to the incredible chemistry on display between Robert Redford and Paul Newman, who made another film together with the very same director called The Sting, also an excellent film. I might like that one even more. William Goldman's script is subversive, it's very funny, it's very different from films of its kind, and he later went on to write such films as Marathon Man, All the President's Men, The Princess Bride. He's an extremely talented writer. One of the best scenes in the film, and it's largely because of that excellent dialogue, is Butch and Sundance arguing about whether or not they'll jump off a cliff or not.
All right. I'll jump first. Nope. Then you jump first.
No, I said.
What's the matter with you?
I can't swim!
So in case you don't know what the film is about, it is based off of a true story about 2 guys who were robbing trains with a gang. Eventually, they have to go to Bolivia because they get caught in America and they try to flee. And we follow them and a woman named Etta, played by Katharine Ross, who they both seem to be in love with as they go on various misadventures. Watching the film again in 2018, which I just did last night, I haven't seen it for a very long time, the film feels almost modern in its execution. The opening 5 to 6 minutes feels like a movie that could have come out a few years ago. It's just, technology stuff where you can kind of tell it was shot in the 60s, but it feels like a very current film in its execution, which is a major compliment because even great films from the old days, the golden era of Hollywood in the 30s, 40s, and then films like Hitchcock's movies in the 60s, the way people talk, the way people dress, the way the film looks, you can just tell it's an older film. And with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, except for some overused sound effects towards the end, the film feels like it could have come out in the theaters this year. And that's a remarkable achievement. But it is understandable why some critics didn't love the film at first, or why Ebert thought the film was disappointing, because it does feel challenging. This is not a conventional Western by any means. It's one of the reasons I really like it. But for some, that can be hard to deal with. There's also some pacing issues in the film. There's a scene involving Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, the song that I primarily associate with Spider-Man 2, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it fits in. Also, spoilers if you've never seen Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Katharine Ross's exit from the film feels very abrupt and almost unnatural. There's a montage sequence in the film that uses old-style photographs to tell a story that feels like it glosses over a very integral part in Butch and Sundance's life. And you can understand why someone would look at this film and say, well, that didn't really work for me, or that's maybe not quite a classic, but it's really good. I have a few issues with it, and I can understand how anyone might not enjoy the film, and I read Ebert's review and some of the other earlier reviews that didn't particularly appreciate the film, and some of them just felt that the violence towards the end was a little too much, and I got news for those critics. If you think that's too violent, you're not going to like any movies from the 80s or the 90s or today, trust me, because that's like nothing compared to today. But I like understanding various viewpoints, different viewpoints. I like reading critics who don't necessarily feel the same way that I do, because a lot of the times you can understand why they feel that way. But in the case of this film, it's just so well executed, and I just have to disagree. I think it's fantastic. One of my favorite sequences in the film is actually one of Ebert's least favorite sequences, and that was when they're fleeing from these guys on horseback that seem to be following them everywhere. Hill set up so many shots that featured Newman and Redford in the foreground and these men on horseback miles away, and they're all in frame, and it's gorgeous. It's extremely suspenseful, and the repeated line, "Who are these guys?" got really funny after a while, because Again, William Goldman's script is just immaculate in its timing, and these two actors were on fire. And there's a moment in the film that actually made me say wow out loud, and it's nothing but an explosion. And in 2018, we've seen a lot of explosions in movies, but there's an explosion of a train car that has two men that get hit by the debris, and it looks incredibly dangerous. It looks like they could have been killed, and it was incredibly well framed and executed.
Well, that ought to do it.
So it's interesting to go back and read some of those early reviews from critics who at the time felt perhaps the production values were too high, or they exceeded the plot, or they overshadowed the actors or their charm. Because today I look at all of this in-camera action, this beautiful cinematography of real countrysides where these two A-list stars are sitting against a mountaintop, and I think to myself, they don't do it like that anymore. And that's one of the things that's so beautiful about Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It's a hilarious film that has some surprising dark moments, and if you've never had a chance to see it, I do highly recommend checking it out. But it does have some flaws. I don't necessarily consider this to be a film perhaps as good as some of the others I've reviewed this year in this series. But it's a damn good one. I'm going to give Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid an A-. So like I said at the beginning of the video, I want to give a big thank you to Bombfell for sponsoring this video. They are a personal stylist for men. They will email you ideas for clothing that you'd like to have. You contact them, you tell them your sizes, and you get your own personal stylist who emails you with a preview of their selections, after which you'll have 48 hours to make any changes or even cancel altogether. You're in total control. They'll send you the clothes, you'll have 7 days to decide, and you only pay for what you want to keep. You can send the rest back with free shipping both ways. You can receive clothes every 1, 2, or 3 months, and you can pause or cancel the subscription at any time. It ships straight to your door. There's no need to spend hours shopping at a store. So check out bombfell.com/Chris for $25 off your first purchase. That's BOMBFELL. My experience with the stylist was very good. They were prompt. She was very kind through the emails, and she picked things that I actually liked. And the clothing genuinely does feel really nice. I wore it all day today. So thank you very much to Bombfell. Please do visit bombfell.com/Chris and you will get $25 off your first purchase. Thank you guys so much as always for watching. Thank you to Bombfell for sponsoring this video. I look forward to more of these classic reviews. I'm going to be doing one a month for the rest of the year. I'm trying to have a nice varying selection of classics, films that I just really like this one, and of course last month's was Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is definitely an interesting experience. Thank you so much, guys, as always, for watching, and if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.